Now it's time for No Pucks Given with Dan Kingerski of Pittsburgh Hockey Now. Penguin Scoops locker room buzz and straight-up analysis. No fluff, all hockey. Now, here's Dan.
It is No Pucks Given, episode like 47 or something. I am Dan Kingerski on the Pittsburgh Hockey Now platforms. Actually, I am doing this live on X as well. It's late Monday. It didn't premiere Monday morning because, well, Snowmageddon shut down the East and I was coming from the West. We'll get into me whining about my travel in just a little bit. I mean, I'll tell you some of the stories, and it's like people always like, oh, it's such a great job. Sometimes it is. And sometimes you wind up staying at the airport Holiday Inn on a Monday night in Minneapolis, because that's all the further you can get. So let's talk about the Penguins, shall we? And I wrote a column Monday morning, kind of laying out Kyle Dubas's 5 strategies for the NHL trade deadline. And I mean, a couple of the strategies, of course, can intersplice and mix. So it won't be a one size fits all, do 1 or 3 or 2 or 4. There is some mixing and matching, but we're going to get into exactly what happens now. I can't confirm this yet. I would guess that when Kyle Dubas put his team together back in July and August and September, he certainly made an effort for each move to be, oh, wait, I should put myself up there. Not that it matters, since this is technically a podcast. But, Kyle Dubas did his best on each individual move. I don't think he could have possibly thought that I'm also battling like so many plane rides, a little bit of a head thing. So as I was saying, I don't think Kyle Dubas, when he put all of this stuff together, could have assumed everything would work. I mean, you get Parker Wotherspoon and Anthony Mantha. You get Justin Brazeau, and you keep Ryan Shea. You get Arturs, Silovs. You can't possibly assume all of this is going to work, but that's exactly what is happening with the Penguins. And that's kind of what is interesting about this. Because all of it has worked, the Penguins are in second place. And I see no reason that they can't stay in second place, right? I mean, are they not better than the Flyers? They clearly are. I think they're better than this year's Capitals. I mean, this year's Capitals are kind of paying back the hockey gods for that incredible last season, right? When they were just a juggernaut of emotion and destiny, and they were just snowballing. It just kept getting bigger and bigger until the playoffs, and then the bill came due. And this year, injuries are mounting, but also Alexander Ovechkin is, not exactly playing on top of his game. So I think the Penguins are at very least equal to the Capitals, if not better, right? There's that. The Islanders, I guess we'll find out when the Penguins and the Islanders really start to, they have a couple of games here, a few games here in the second half of the season, or the last third of the season, actually. Give me 1 second here. Actually, I have to mute myself. I'm going to sneeze, and you don't need to hear that. And we're back. Listen, I'm laboring. There's no two ways about it. I am absolutely laboring through this No Pucks Given, which is live on X. What is it, 11:30 back east? Anyway, where exactly were we with all of this? In the Penguins being solidly in second place. Now, they're not going to have another 11-2-2 run. That would be silly to expect. The funny thing is there's going to be a, kind of a flow or an ebb, whichever one is down after, this rising tide. There just has to be, right? They're not going to go 40 games winning 80% of them. Yet, I don't think this team is going to panic. I don't think this team is going to go in their shell, and I certainly don't think this team is going to crumble like the last few have. So, in talking about the trade deadline and what comes next, there really is kind of, let's call it three avenues with a couple of little spices, Dubas can add. The first one, the first path that he can take is hold. I feel like William Wallace, hold. And that is realizing that he's built a pretty good team with pretty good chemistry that doesn't have any weaknesses. Their defense could be better, but unlike past seasons, there's nobody weighing them down. There's no holes they have to protect or cover for. They're better. They're solid on defense. So holding means essentially the Penguins are going to reacquire Anthony Mantha for themselves by forgoing what they might get on the trade market. It's essentially renting him to yourself. The same might go for Stuart Skinner, who really, very quickly is becoming almost indispensable to this team. Connor Dewar and Noel Acciari are UFAs as well. I don't think Dubas would keep everybody at the trade deadline. But then again, if he doesn't get a good enough offer, why not? You're not going to sell a piece. Let's just use Connor Dewar for a prime example. You're not going to sell off Connor Dewar because he'll get you a third or fourth round pick. Do you really need that? Isn't he worth more to you? And then you worry about re-signing him when that time comes. You burn that bridge when you come to it. I kind of think the same thing about Noel Acciari. I mean, in past years, Acciari commanded a nice sum at the trade deadline. Dubas knows this because Dubas was the acquiring GM in Toronto who paid a boatload for, I'm trying to think of the defenseman that came with Noel Acciari to Toronto. You get what I'm saying. But now, at this point in Acciari's career, is he going to fetch you a good prospect or, a higher second round pick? No, he's just not. There again, you rent these guys to yourself. Connor Clifton as well. Brett Kulak is the interesting one. That'll, Kulak is the one guy that could probably fetch a lot, but also is quite valuable to the Penguins. So that's strategy one, hold. Strategy two, for the Penguins is kind of do what the Philadelphia Flyers did a couple of seasons ago in the 23-24 season. I always want to call him Danny Briere, but Daniel Briere basically said, yeah, we're in a playoff position, but we're not a Stanley Cup contender. I don't care where we are in the standings. I've got to sell because the future is more important. I'm not going to be, overwhelmed by emotion in this moment and forget what we're here to do. He traded away veterans like defenseman Sean Walker, and the Flyers, who were, I think, in third place at the time, completely missed the playoffs, completely cratered, and haven't been as good since. That's the other way to go. The Washington Capitals did the same thing in 23-24 when they traded several veterans. Anthony Mantha, they traded away. Joel Edmondson, Evgeny Kuznetsov. Now, Washington actually still made the playoffs. I mean, they didn't do very well, but they made the playoffs. So that's kind of what Kyle Dubas, those are the two probably primary things that he's looking at. The hybrid approach, I'm not sure on which end of the hybrid spectrum he's going to fall because, I guess on one end of the hybrid spectrum, you're trading away more of those players, and on the conservative end, you might trade one of those players. But also, what I know Kyle Dubas is doing and will do, and you know it too, the surgical targets. He's not going to be out there shopping for Braden Shen or Nazem Kadri. He won't be in the Rasmus Anderson. He wasn't going to be in the Rasmus Anderson sweepstakes. But those players like Igor Chinikov, Tommy Novak, and Philip Tomasino last year, those guys that he feels like can come in and they can get more out of, that he can get in his price range to help the team, preferably younger. Novak's the old guy in that list. Now he's 28, so he was 27 when they acquired him. I think you will see at least one of those deals. It won't be earth-shattering. I think it will be on defense, if I'm being candid. I think the Penguins really could use another right-handed defenseman, especially. Jack St. Ivany. I suspect you're going to get some bad news on St. Ivany on Tuesday. Just the way everything kind of shook out Sunday in Vancouver, I suspect you're going to get some bad news on St. Ivany, which means the other right-handed defenseman in the organization is Matt Dumba. Matt Dumba is not making many friends or fans with the way he's playing in Wilkes-Barre. Now, Coach Kirk McDonald didn't exactly rip him specifically, but he ripped him specifically. I don't know if it was last week or 2 weeks ago. I kind of heard about it late, where McDonald said some guys don't respect this league. He clearly was talking about Matt Dumba, who is not playing well down in Wilkes. So the Penguins could use some right-handed depth because now they're down to 3. Now you're looking at Letang, Carlson, and Connor Clifton. Ryan Shea can flip. Brett Kulak can flip, but you don't want to mess with what's working. That's why we start talking about hybrids and targets. I could definitely see Dubas surgically looking for some of these guys who are younger they can get, but also affordable right-handed defensemen. By the way, if you're listening to us on X, I know it's late. I don't expect many viewers over there, but drop a comment in there because essentially you're co-hosting tonight, and I will take a few or a lot of your questions to get through this. Quite frankly, let's talk about the fourth path for the trade deadline, which I think has almost no chance. I would be shocked if Kyle Dubas was a buyer at the deadline. That's the way the Penguins were run for the better part of a decade. Every year at the trade deadline, we're talking 2013, 14, 15, 16. They only had two first round picks between 14 and 22. They had Kasperi Kapanen and Owen Pickering. Am I missing anybody? I don't think I am. So from that standpoint, the cupboard was bare when Ron Hextall got here, and he began to add some talent there. But Dubas has done a lot more. He is not going to spend young players and significant future assets anyway. He's not going to spend to bring in a 32-year-old veteran, especially anybody who might be a rental. Ain't happening. So, but that is one possible path, right? Those are the 4 primary paths. I really do think Dubas is going to stay disciplined. I mean, he is a Lou Lamoriello guy, after all. Don't forget, Lou Lam brought him up in the NHL. He learned a lot from that guy. And there was nothing that Lamoriello was, if not disciplined. I can quibble or argue with some of the way he conducted his business. Oh, no facial hair and some of that stuff, and the absolute ironclad secrecy on everything. Kind of hurts the game, quite frankly. But he was good at what he did. He was detailed, and he taught Dubas as much as he could, right? So Dubas is not going to lose his head through all of this. I wonder if the chat is working. No, I don't see any chats or anything. So I tell you what, I'm going to take a quick timeout here on the No Pucks Given show. We're going to pay some bills on the Odyssey Podcast Network and come back with I see some questions coming in via Twitter, and we'll take a few of those questions here on NPG. Alrighty, we're back on No Pucks Given. Here, episode 46. I'm Dan Kingerski on the Pittsburgh Hockey Now platforms and the Odyssey Podcast Network. Questions coming in via X. What would a realistic offer from the Dubas to obtain Robertson? Jason Robertson? Oh boy. I've had this conversation. Now, Josh Yohe is the one who broke the news that, the Penguins do like Jason Robertson. Of course, they like him. And I've had this conversation privately with Josh, too. I'm not going to tell you, his side or anything. He's got his own little print outlet over there at The Athletic. I will tell you, I do not see a way in hell the Penguins can afford Jason Robertson. Here is my gut feeling. It's not, this isn't what I've been told or heard. My gut feeling is this is a 4-asset trade. We're talking an NHL player. We're talking a first-round pick. We're talking a prospect and something else. Whether that's a, second, third-round pick, whether that's a middle prospect, whether that's a second NHL player. We're talking about a 4-asset flip here. I could be wrong on this. So I was wrong on Erik Karlsson. I was like, what is no, Kyle Dubas is never going to acquire Erik Karlsson. Well, guess what Kyle Dubas did? He acquired Erik Karlsson. So I cannot out of hand dismiss the possibility of Jason Robertson. And I can't out of hand say it'll be too expensive, but for my money and where the Penguins are, Robertson's going to be 27. He's not a big guy. I don't think he ages well. So that's 5 years. In the next 5 years, what's going to happen with the Penguins? I mean, obviously, the play of the team has pushed back, hitting rock bottom by years at this point. We're talking about Evgeni Malkin coming back for another year, Chris Letang for a couple more years after this. They've kept Erik Karlsson, Rickard Rakell, Brian Rust. So, if you get Jason Robertson, it almost seems like a gap filler, a bridge filler until your next era. I don't think he's a guy that ushers in the next era. This is again, all my opinion. Feel free to disagree. So what does it look like? Well, we're probably talking a first-round pick. Whether it's Tristan Brose or Owen Pickering. We might be talking Rickard Rakell. And a first-round pick. Yeah. Isn't that crazy? Would you do that for Robertson? And I suppose another, who else would Dallas like? I hate to start tossing out names on the back end of that, but you start looking at guys like Ryan Shea, who would probably hate to go back to Dallas because they treated him, like yesterday's leftovers when he was in the organization, or Parker Wathers. But you begin to realize just what it would take away from the Penguins to get him, and I don't know. I also think, and don't forget, we don't operate in a vacuum on this. So, Jim, other teams will come to the table, I think, with offers bigger than what I just talked about. Although, good gosh almighty, Rickard Rakell is playing some good hockey this season. He has figured it out. And by figured it out, I mean he is playing really well down low. He is playing hard at the net on both ends of the rink. He's playing hard in the corners and hard on the wall. Plus, he already had these slick hands and hockey IQ and offensive instincts. Honest to goodness, I think he is wildly underrated. And to lose him in a trade, you're going to have to get something back to make up for what you've given. I don't know. I hope I've answered that. I mean, I gave as many specifics as I could. It's tough for me because I feel like in 3 years, the Penguins would regret that trade. That's just my thing. Or maybe 4 years. They're like, look at all those guys we gave up. And when Jason Robertson is playing on a line with, I don't know, you're hoping Bill Zonin comes through. Or, Jason Robertson and Ben Kindle. Is that top line fodder? I can't see it. I just, but again, I didn't see Erik Karlsson coming either. So take it all with a grain of salt. Citizen Dick says, from all the videos I've seen of Rusty and his supposed dirty play, the Canucks words, it just doesn't look like he moved his elbow. And if not for the push from Rakell, he may not have even touched the guy. Is player safety pulling some BS here? It feels pretty flimsy. Citizen, I had the exact opposite. When I saw the video, I was shocked that was Brian Rust who would do something, kind of come through with the elbow. If somebody did that to Brian Rust, I think Penguins fans would be hopping mad. It didn't feel flimsy whatsoever. I thought Rust would get fined. I'm a little surprised about the hearing, but by the same token, it is what I've advocated for dozens of times, right? I have advocated for stricter rules against headshots. Was it preventable? Yeah, I definitely think so. I mean, we haven't heard Brian Rust's side of the story yet. We may never. He might just take his punishment, sit out a few days from practice, come back and say, yeah, I'm not talking about it. It's the past. So we might never get his side of the story. But that was a play that you'd want blood if it happened to one of the Penguins. So I'm not going to call it flimsy. I am actually going to agree it looked dirty. It looked like he had a vengeance or a score to settle and used the last second to do so. It's hockey. It happens. From Bill, do you think we'll see Hallander play again this year? Maybe in March? That's a really good question. He does have a locker stall. I mean, he's been skating for a little while. I don't think you'll see him play for the Penguins, though, unless the lineup gets really banged up and hurt, because you don't want to bring him back when you're fully healthy and have to put somebody through waivers. And quite frankly, I don't know that Hallander would not be the guy to go through waivers. So if I'm in the GM chair, that's one of those slow walk recoveries. Even if he might be ready a few weeks in advance of the end of the regular season, I'm going to try to slow walk it to the end so that there's nobody going through waivers. and there's no players lost, no danger of players lost, no danger of losing Hallander. And then you just reset for next year and let the chips fall where they may. That is actually all the questions I've gotten on Twitter, guys. You guys can fire away here. Don't forget, I'm doing this No Pucks Given live. Big Mike Kittle, Dan, maybe Jason Robertson by the deadline, or do you think if he's even moved at all, it's more likely in the summer? I don't know. I think the last part of that is really interesting to me. I don't know what the deadline is going to be. I've heard people say that the buying teams, in fact, Elliot Friedman said this Saturday on Hockey Night in Canada, that the buyers are telling the sellers, yeah, that's cute. We're going to wait until after the Olympic break because we're not going to pay a guy for 3 weeks to sit on the beach. It's like, oh, that kind of makes sense. That generally is that's the way it goes. That's the usual, that the big deals get made in the summer. I wonder, though, if 3 weeks of no hockey, the GMs might get a little antsy and some blockbusters happen. I don't think Dallas is very good this year. I know they've got a good record. I've just not been impressed when I've seen them. They're structured and they've got some talent, but they're not as good as 3 or 4 other Western Conference teams, and it's noticeably so. So what do you do at that point? Do you accept the fact that you're probably first round fodder this year if you draw one of the good teams? Saw someone's mad at the ads on Pittsburgh Hockey Now. Like, well, you can subscribe to PHN Plus. Listen, I love you all, but I'm not doing this for charity. No, I have been on my phone sometimes, and I've told our tech people, like, good Lord, starts jumping around, and you're trying to go here, trying to go there, and the screen starts moving. They did not realize quite the level of sophistication and the number of things we had plugged into the website to make it all work. When they started unplugging things to make it more streamlined, oh boy, they're like, oh, wait, that broke this broke that. And they've been chasing and they've been trying to figure it out for 6 months. we had it optimized, but it was absolutely redneck engineering on the back end. And I'm like, I love my tech partner. In fact, I love that he did it. We did more with less than anybody on the internet. I mean, think about this. From my dining room table, my big puffy, now beat to hell and tossed recliner, because I just worn it out. We started a national company, for God's sakes, that was worth 7 figures. Now that the worth got knocked down a little bit when investors and the venture capital world saw the Athletics sell for hundreds of millions and really not be worth it. And everyone's like, woo, wait a second here. And my valuation, went down like overnight because of the Athletics books. Having said all of that, from one guy wanting to do this, we grew forth, at one point, 19, 20 cities across the NHL. And yeah. Anyway, to the ads, just subscribe to PHN Plus. Ta-da! Gone. Plus, you then become my best friend. Okay, let me get back to the questions here. D. Rose, do you think I'm crazy for thinking Gino is playing extremely elite? Well, D Rose, have you read my stuff? Good Lord, read Pittsburgh Hockey Now. Like, I don't think these two line combos just happen to be great. I think he's playing out of his mind. Yeah. Evgeni Malkin is playing like he's 30, not 40 or 29 instead of 39. He's moving extremely well. He's, and because he's moving, he is seeing things. He's able to get there. He's able to do things that he hasn't been able to do in a little while. Also, what everybody's overlooking here when we talk about Evgeni Malkin and his resurgence, he is playing smart hockey. Sure, he's going to try to make a crazy pass through 3 defenders, and sometimes it doesn't work. Suck it up, Buttercup, and live with it. When people start bemoaning, oh, Malkin has these turnovers. Like, shut up. Look at what he's doing. He is really playing a much better brand of hockey than he has been. So, yeah, he's elite is such a big word. But you're not far off. I'm not going to quibble with the word elite. I might be a little uncomfortable with it, D Rose, but yeah, you're in the ballpark. You're in the right church there. He's been great. And his quote all about I want to show everybody I can play next year. We know who he meant by everybody. We know he meant Kyle Dubas. He wants to show Kyle Dubas he can play next year. So I had a lot more notes to get to. How long is this podcast? Okay, 30. You know what? We'll do lightning round here, and this will kind of set us up for future podcasts. I'll do the live chat this week as well. I'll probably do it Wednesday evening instead of Wednesday afternoon because the Penguins will probably practice Wednesday. So, and I feel bad that I've asked Dan Muse this a couple of times in different variations through the season. And he's kind of got a little bit of a stock rejoinder to his answer. When I say, what's different here? What's different there? Or, in past years, this has been the case. How is it different this year? And he's like, dude, I'm new. I'm new around here. What do you want from me? He doesn't say it like that. He's far too friendly, classy to give me crap like that. Although it'd be pretty funny if he did. Dan, did you notice I wasn't the coach last? Like, what are you talking about? But there are differences, like significant differences between this team and previous iterations, despite the fact the personnel really isn't that different and really not better than it has been. And it really does come down to and I wrote the article over the weekend. Was it late last week? I wrote it. The road trips begin. I have no idea what day it is on a road trip. But there is a different feeling with Dan Muse. Guys don't feel the burden of the coach. They feel encouraged and picked up and pushed appropriately. And in that different feeling, they're able to gel in an entirely different sort of way. So when crap goes sideways like it did in December, it doesn't kill the team. I mean, it hurts, but they're able to figure it out. They're able to feel like they got through that. Like, oh, we survived. Haha, we can survive anything. And there's a freeing confidence with that. Also, we saw this on the road trip too. Difference from this year to previous years, goaltending. Good Lord. Stuart Skinner, man, he is playing so well. Think about this, though. As frustrated, and I don't really get it. I don't understand what the Arturs Silovs hate. I mean, look, he had problems this season, and I called them out. I specified what they were. They've all gotten better. And that was the entire point of acquiring Arturs Silovs, was that runway to get better, to become a consistent and regular NHL goalie. He's doing that. Silovs by himself is playing better this year, right now, than Tristan Jarry and Alex Nedeljkovic did. He's better. I don't know that he is better, but he's playing better than, he's providing better goaltending. That's how I want to say it. He's providing better goaltending than the Penguins have gotten. Then you throw in Stuart Skinner, who lights out, man. He's playing big. He's communicating with his defenseman. Like, it's a whole thing, absorbing shots and rebounds and taking away the net. If he's in the cage, the Penguins have a chance to win that night. Never more evident than the Penguins have started to struggle after they score a goal. The other teams have been able to push back on them. Whereas in years past, that was prime time for a softie or a goal against. Skinner and Silovs have risen to the challenge and the occasion and made those saves. So we've talked about Evgeni Malkin. In comparing this team to years past, I suppose the biggest difference on the ice, anyway, besides the goaltending, is the third line. Last year it was a steady diet of Kevin Hayes, and I'm not going to bash Kevin Hayes in any way, shape, or form. Ben Kindle, at this point in his career, or Tommy Novak, with Justin Brazeau and Anthony Mantha, that is so much better than what the Penguins had. So when you have a top nine able to contribute offensively, actually when you have four lines able to contribute offensively, and the fourth line playing as well as they have, it really does create a very different sort of team. That was the question we were banding about on Twitter today was, is this team a Stanley Cup contender? I don't think they're there. I don't think they're a cup contender. I think they're a strong playoff contender. I think they can win a round, 2 rounds. Honestly, I couldn't see them beating Vegas or Colorado in a 7-game series. Couldn't see it. Can't see it. But there's a bit of road to go yet before we get there. I definitely think the Penguins could beat pretty much everybody in the Eastern Conference except Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay is real. Tampa Bay is on level with Colorado. They are a great team. I think Florida, if they don't get knocked out early, will start to roll. They'll start to feel it. And I don't think the Penguins would beat them in a conference final. So that's it, kids. I am done. No pucks given. I thank you for hanging out late Monday night. We'll have this up. Download this wherever you get your podcast, the Apple, the Amazon, Spotify, and on YouTube. All right, in the meantime, kids, have fun.